Well, good evening, internets. It's me, DP Knudten, and it's time for another edition of Bookward Bound, my 301-day journey from I should really do this to done. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the creation of a brand new book called NONFICTION Brand, Discover, Craft, and Communicate the Completely True, Completely You brand you already are. And that's what I'm doing every single night. Coming down here, working on the book. Sorry. Wrong button. And coming down here every single night to work on the book, as I have been for, let's see, tonight, 263 consecutive nights. Yeah, it's crazy. But I'll be honest with you. I've had this book in my head for at least 15 years. And if it weren't for you keeping me honest and making me come down here and work on this book, I probably wouldn't be anywhere near where I am tonight, which is almost done. I mean, seriously, almost done. The written part is, for all intents and purposes, finished. And now it's all about editing and formatting and all that stuff, which, let me show you how I'm doing that. I'll take you on over to Scrivener, the application I'm using to actually write this book. And ignore that. I'm just monitoring to make sure that my live stream is, in fact, going out over things like Facebook. And it is. Thank you very much. But here's Scrivener. It's an application that has a big window where you do the writing, and then over here a bunch of sections or chapters, if you will, however you want to think of the formatting of your book in terms of sections. That's what this is. And you can see I got a bunch of them with a bunch of blue flags or green flags. Now, the green flags, green is good because green means that section has been final edited. It's not only written, it's been more or less blessed for at least this stage of the proofing and editing process. But there are other sections like this one right here. Welcome to the task talent economy. Task is actually struck through. I have got to actually go through this and proof it. And the way I'm going to do it is the way that I do just about everything I do in terms of blog posts and everything else. I like to have a very vocal style of writing. So it won't surprise you if I say that I actually vocalize my writing before I put it out into the world, which means I read it aloud. I actually read it so that I can hear any stumbly parts. For example, if I stumble over a sentence because of punctuation or tempo or length, or I run out of breath, that means the sentence is too long or needs a little bit of shaping or final finish sanding, if you will. So by reading it aloud and stumbling, that's the point where I know I have to do some fixing. So I'm gonna show you exactly how it works by showing you exactly how it works. Welcome to the task talent economy. You see this, and this is actually a screenshot from CNBC. Amazon is opening its first full-size cashierless grocery store, blah, blah, blah. Read the whole thing at URL. Know what that is? It's a meteor coming for around 3.5 million Americans. According to Wolfram Alpha, that's the number of Americans facing a really hard truth that they probably are probably unaware of. Thank you. According to Wolfram Alpha, that's the number of Americans facing a really hard truth that they are probably completely unaware of. The Amazon cashierless store is coming fast. You don't have to be Nostradamus to see that this is going to displace a whole lot of people, many of whom can least afford it. There are currently around 3.5 million cashiers, human cashiers in stores around the U.S. And the global pandemic is having tremendously negative effects on retail. I don't like that. Tremendous. In the U.S. period. The global pandemic is having tremendous negative effects on retail, and many industry analysts are saying it's likely many of those currently shuttered stores will never reopen. Add to that what Amazon's already working on and rolling out to other retailers, and you've got a whole lot of cashier, task-oriented workers facing an uncertain future at best. How about another task-oriented job, the over-the-road trucker? If you're a long-haul driver, what are you going to do when that entire job sector disappears practically overnight, once self-driving trucks are the dominant means of getting goods to and from major metro areas? That's another 3.5 million according to the American Trucking Association. Humans, workers. Workers, according to the American Trucking Association. Think the inevitable loss of around 7 million jobs might have some significant social implications? Yes. And the list can go on and on. It's time to face the music. Dissonant as it may be, the task economy is dead or dying fast. Personal nightmare? No, personal brand. Sad to say, the days of simply being good at your job are over. It joins such concepts as a job for life in the basket of what was and no longer can be. It joins such concepts as a job for life in the basket of what was but can no longer be. So what can you do to counter the inevitable? Develop your talents, demonstrate your worth, and package yourself as a brand. Performing brilliantly in obscurity is not a winning strategy. Unlike other parts of the country, here in the great Midwest of America, it's not all that cool to tout your accomplishments. It's not all that culturally cool. Cool to overtly tout your accomplishments. It's not due to any innate inferiority complex. It's just baked into the culture. I chalk it up to an ingrained hide your light under a bush an ingrained hide your light under a bushel syndrome. Despite what the biblical injunction says, that's exactly what most of us do here. But again, I think they're too, But again, just working hard, keeping your head down, and getting things done isn't enough anymore. And soon, AI, artificial intelligence, AI, will be able to perform way too many jobs better than humans can. And with no expensive PTO benefits required. Remember way back when, let's say 5 years ago, when your boss or manager could commandeer the kudos for your work deserved? Remember way back when, let's say 5 years ago, when your boss or manager could commandeer the kudos your work deserved for themselves? That's still going to happen. But now you have a global stage and audience waiting for you. Ooh. Yeah, this is not good. That's still going to happen. But now there's a global stage and audience just waiting for you. Don't need the and. All it takes to reclaim those kudos is a blog post, video, case study article, etc., shared via social media. Let's be clear, I'm not talking about sharing your client's intellectual property, but there are a bunch of canny ways to get the word out without spilling any copy. To get the word out about your great work without spilling any copyrighted beans. Talent is purely qualitative, and the only way to prove your quality is to demonstrate it. Sorry, resume nerds. Talent cannot be quantified on paper or crawled by bots. It must be demonstrated in person. Not in person, but it must be demonstrated. It must be demonstrated. It must be demonstrated. Person. It must be done in front. It must be demonstrated. But guess what? Social media. Get rid of that guess what. That's what. That's cute. Social media allows you the virtual in-person be demonstrated, comma, ideally in person. Social media allows you to be virtually in person with potentially anyone online. Anyone online around the globe. Be in there. You don't have to look far for examples of this in action. Just take a look at the people you follow on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Each of those people have earned a place in your head and during your day. How did they do it? What do they do that you find most interesting and valuable? These are the questions you need to start asking yourself as you engage with the social posts they're sharing. Let these people be your teacher. They're obviously doing something right. Obviously doing something right. How do you beat the coming meteor? Embrace your personal superstar. Convinced that you have convinced that to have a job that performs a task is not. Oh my God. When did I write this and why is it so poorly written? Yeah. Good. So what's one to do about that? So what's one to do about that? Trade your task oriented. Okay, so convinced that to have a job that performs the task is not a long-term career positive strategy yet. Good. Leave that. Make that a question. Good. So what's one to do about that? Trade your task orientation for one that focuses on your talents. Artists of all forms have done this for eons, especially musicians. If you think about it, music should be one of the very first areas that artificial intelligence will be able to make a significant impact. After all, music, to some, is basically a dialect of mathematics. 12 tones in a Western scale, 4 quarter notes to a measure in 4/4. An A is nothing more than a sound wave pitch, sound wave that cycles at 440 times a second. That cycles 440 times a second. All of these things are numerically based descriptions of something that truly defies description in words. And math, and yet, current math and AI He's no match in capturing the brilliance of Scarlett, Shostakovich, or Stevie Ray Vaughan. There's only two real differences between music created by software and humans: talent and taste. And it's arguable that since taste is the prime function of talent, it really just boils down to that. Your talent, the thing that makes your talent, is the thing that makes all the difference. Many years ago, I used to collect different conductors and symphonies recordings of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. After hours of listening to different conductors interpretations of this modern American masterpiece, I began to be able to discern subtle differences that created massive differences in the individual's subtle nuances that created massive differences in the individual performances, feel, emotion, and impact. But here's the thing. All of these recordings were playing the exact same piece with proven masters playing the exact same instruments, recorded by master producers on the best-in-class equipment, and yet they all sounded amazingly different. Why was one of these top-level recordings better than the others, with all things being more or less equal? The talent of the conductor and all the players in the orchestra. And that is my point. The only way to survive the coming Skynet AI onslaught is to lean into your humanity and your talent. A kid, but not by much. Talents aren't what you want to be good at. They're what you're actually great at. Take that back to. When I use the word talent here, I'm talking about something very specific that's based on deep native skill set you were graced with at birth. If you've watched any of my live streaming videos, you've probably noticed, based on the wall behind me, that I've got a thing of guitars. I love them. I've mentioned this more. I love them. Acoustic, electric, all the above. I have a Don't Tell My Wife collection of 10 and counting. Most of them are dirt cheap, but I love them all, play them all, and pretend I'm a guitar god with them all. But I'm not, and never will be. While I have some proficiency on guitar, I'm not naturally talented there. Talented on the instrument. And anytime I need to be reminded of that, all I have to do is go online or even Instagram to see completely unknown masters of guitar from all over the world. They have the talent. I do not. However, a long time ago, I read the autobiography of Alex Haley, the global best-selling author, of the autobiography of Malcolm X, 1965, and Roots, the saga of an American family. Italicized. Looking back now, I see his story, his personal story, as a perfect example of discovering your talent, leaning into it, and achieving greatness. For first 2 acts of his career the first act of his professional career. I'm going to say the first 2 acts. I was a Coast Guardsman in the United States Coast Guard. Stewart. I gotta look that up. Got a vessel named after him. Good old Wikipedia. Coast Guard career. Petty officer, 3rd class, steward. In the United States. First phase. Let's see. This is perfect. Alex Haley was a petty officer, 3rd class in the United States Coast Guard for a full 20 years. While serving, he discovered something fundamental about himself and humanity at large. As a black American serving in 1939, only 2 ratings were available to black Americans. So serving in 1939, I say first serving in 1939, only 2 ratings jobs were available to black Americans, so he served his shipmates as a mess attendant. Other members of the crew discovered his great talent as a writer, and so they'd pay him to write letters to their mothers, who would always respond with such great joy at the quality of the letters received. I can still remember reading this line in the book, biography. My interest in reading led to an accidental interest in writing. I began in the Coast Guard by writing love letters for my fellow sailors, which, I might add, mushroomed into a full-time undertaking. Letters to their girlfriend. Which I might add, mushroomed into a full-time undertaking. The letters proved so successful that I was freed from having to work as a cook. Alex discovered his talent only after serving a full career in the Coast Guard, and when he dedicated the rest of his working life to it, he achieved a level of fame and greatness few can claim. His talent was writing. It came easy to him, but never was easy. Such is the writer's life. I remember reading in that biography that when he realized others would pay him to write for them, writing became a viable option. And that anecdote stuck with me for years and led me to my nearly 30-year career doing the same. My talent for writing is the foundation for everything I do. I wish I could say the same for music and math, but frankly I can't, because my most authentic talent involves the written word. The day I truly understood that about myself was the day I stopped performing a series of task-oriented jobs and began a talent-aligned career in advertising, and to be more specific, on the creative side of the fence. But that's me. What about you? To be a great organizer is a talent. To be a deeply empathetic listener is a talent. To be able to take on anything apart and put it back together is a talent. And one thing I've learned over my long years of life is that if you are really good at anything, there's someone who's just dying to pay you to do it for them. There's only one problem, though. out of the 7.8 billion people on the face of the earth, how are you supposed to meet those very specific people needing your very specific talent? That's a great question. And the reason this book, that's a great question. The reason this book has been, and the reason I wrote this book, the reason I wrote this book. Read on, execute the strategies and tactics contained herein, and most importantly, get out there and demonstrate your talent. As mentioned several times throughout this book, there's never been a better time to do exactly that. As you'll see mentioned several times. Mentioned several times. That's about 6-7 minutes of reading, writing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a green flag of edited for now. Yeah, that's what it stands for, edited for now. And a bunch of stuff in here. I know this is going to be a section I'm not going to enjoy a lot. All right. The strength of your interest in reading this section is probably going to be directly correlated with your age. Why? Because some of you are going to resonate with its main theme from the very first sentence, but others, especially those early in their careers, might, but others might find it to be like some kind of eat your vegetable fatherly admonition. But whatever your age or experience today, the facts and circumstances presented here are coming at you like a freight train. It's just that for some of us more experienced folks, that train isn't just some distant horn at midnight, but a blinding light that's bearing down at life and career-threatening speeds. So much of this book is based not just on Tom Peters' brilliant idea, but on your author's personal experience. And some of that experience ain't so pretty. My father used to say far too often that if there was a hard way to do something, I'd find it. He wasn't wrong about that. I'd find it. He wasn't wrong about that either. After 3 decades working in the creative minds of advertising, I've learned a couple of hard truths that I've written about extensively here, but the hardest of the hard truths comes down to one simple phrase, one simple sentence. If you don't own it, it's not yours. Well, I don't want to go all therapy on you. I think my experience is instructive and completely is instructive and unfortunately all too common. I have the feeling that some of the people reading this book of a certain age are going to have experienced a lot of the same things, but in different ways. And for those of you younger, youngins, and for those, and for you youngins, feel free to learn about it from my bad, sad example. I'm talking about being so successful that you know not only make it to your X years, but blow the doors. What? A little life I call your X years. What are X years? What are X years? The stage in your career when you're unquestionably experienced, demonstrably excellent at what you do, justifiably expensive, and therefore completely expendable. There comes a time right at the peak of your career when you are really on fire. After years climbing the ladder, getting more experience and compensation at every step up, there will be a point where if you don't own it, it's not yours, baseball bat comes swinging right for your forehead, right at your forehead, comes swinging right at your forehead. You're tremendously experienced, excellent at what you do, as your pay rate can attest, and all of a sudden, you're too expensive for the company that you don't own. In a situation like that, all it takes is a lost client, weak economy, or a global pandemic, and you're being politely walked out the door. And it makes economic sense too. And for the company that you don't own, it makes perfect economic sense too. Why let 2 or 3 cheaper folks go when you can just get rid of the biggest salary in the payroll? That's happened to me twice, and it took me 2 hits from the "it's not yours" baseball bat to finally learn the lesson. But I did. For years, I worked more or less anonymously behind the walls of the agency creative department. Creating the work that attracted clients, converted customers, and raised awareness for a wide variety of brands, except the most important one. Sure, the clients I worked with most closely as copywriter and creative director knew and respected me, but none of them quit the agency when the agency quit me. It's a hard pill to swallow when you think only you can deliver the kind of work the client wanted, then discover that was not, in fact, the case. But that's the power of branding. The client was buying the agency brand over yours, and why not, when they had no idea what your brand actually was and still is. Still is. Such things can happen fast with absolutely no warning. In my case, second time went something like this. The agency owner, account management side, and I, creative side, were in Cleveland for a new business meeting and had a few hours to kill. So what do you do in CLE when to waste a little time? Head over to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. While we were there, we had a great time checking out the exhibits and seeing up close some of the artifacts that created our favorite songs. A highlight for me seeing Jeff Beck's original battle-scarred white Fender Telecaster. Very cool. One of the must-get-a-photo landmarks in the museum is Ringo Starr's original Ludwig kick drum with the hand-painted The Beatles logo on the front. If you're old enough to remember the first Beatles 45 RPM single you ever heard, like it was if you're old enough to remember the first Beatles 45 RPM single you ever heard, like it was yesterday, for me, just being so close to that Rosetta Stone of rock and roll was thrilling. Since I was with my boss, I offered to take a photo of her in front of the display and began to do so. A very kind lady nearby offered to take a pic with both of us. Take a pic, both of us, since she assumed we were a couple. I said, no, no thanks, she's my boss. Just as my boss said, that's okay, we own an agency together. We had never officially talked about such an arrangement, but we both knew we were working in that direction. With me being a believer in the work speaks for itself, I thought that's what the work was saying, and it appeared we both agreed. Imagine my surprise when just 5 months later, that apparent agreement disappeared in the space of a single video call, when I was introduced to the principals of an agency that were merging with the one that I had been working toward owning for several years. No notice, no hint that such a thing might have been in the works, and no more need of my services. That Cleveland trip was in June, and that don't let the door hit you on the way out blindside was in November. C'est la vie. Let's give that some italics. And in this case, c'est la hurts. But guess what? I didn't own the agency, and it clearly wasn't mine. The only ones who benefit from your lack of personal brand are everybody, not you. The only ones who benefit are everybody. Is the only one who anyone. The only one who benefits from your lack of a personal brand is everybody. The only one who benefits from your lack of a brand is everybody but you. Is that right? So the only one who benefits from your lack of a personal brand is everybody but you. As I write this, I feel incredibly uncomfortable. Coming from the American Midwest, it's hard to talk about failure. But that's exactly what the first 25 years of my professional career were when it comes to creating a personal brand. Like the shoemaker's children, I went personal brand barefoot for decades. And only when I desperately needed shoes after being politely ushered out the door. I don't need that clause in there. And only when I desperately needed shoes did I start creating the thing I'd read about. In Tom Peters' 1997 Wire article. Yes, I had a professional reputation, but those who knew what it was, were members of a very select, read small group. But those who knew it were members of a very small, very select, read small group. My general personal brand awareness was pathetic, and I had to immediately start doing something about it. Luckily, having worked on branding level stuff for everything from sugar to water to plywood, I knew a thing or two about digging deep to discover the completely true brand foundations of a product or service. Every technique, process, system, and method used for the big international brand used for big international brands work equally well for your more personal one. So that's what I did for myself. It's not easy, but if you really care about telling the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth about you, the brand, the work is definitely worth it. And that's what this book is about, providing you with the tools and techniques necessary to dig deep into your already existing but probably ill-defined brand to discover the full truth about who you are, what you do, and how you do it in order to create a cogent and completely true story that attracts interest, spurs engagement, and ultimately grows relationships. Why? Because your next years are coming, and the best time to prepare for them is now. How about that? All right, let's give that a green flag, a green for goodness. Oh, goodness sake. So that, let's say that's edited, roughly edited for now. I'll definitely have to come back to it, and I certainly will. But that's 2 sections I looked at tonight. So let's just count the number of blue ones here. I'm just going to quickly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. Let's say 43. There are 43 sections that I got to go through. So if I do 2 a night, that comes out to roughly 21.5, or exactly 21.5. 21.5 days, and I've got 38 days left to go. So looks like I'll be doing at least 2 of these a night. And actually, I should do a little bit more. So maybe 3 every once in a while, do 3 a night so that I can get through these, because I want to actually upload the book completely and get a printed proof, because that's one of the cool things that Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing platform allows you to do. You upload the file, and before you publish it, you can get a hard proof, a full, it looks exactly like the one that'll be sold for, I think they'll let you get maybe 5 of them before you have to actually publish the book. And it allows you to get it and go through it and really edit like crazy, because as much as you edit here, you're going to want to look into the real book, because that's where a lot of the changes, you have to make sure the printing process doesn't mess some things up, like make margins too tight, or something that should be bold isn't bolded, or things that should be in solid black ink are actually in a 4-color ink, so it comes out kind of gray. No, you want it to be 100% black. Well, you can only find that out by having them actually print out a copy and then go through that thing with a fine-tooth comb. So I'm going to be uploading call it a draft, a publication draft file of that, hopefully by mid-December. At that time, I'll also be sending it out to all the people who are written in the book, and so that they can read through their sections and make any corrections, or tell me. They could even say, hey, dude, don't include me in your book, and that would be fine, because I have not asked for permission as yet. I'm a very much a forgiveness, not permission guy. So around first week, second week of December, I want to get these the PDF in the hands of all the people in the book so they can take a look at it. They can read it and hopefully give me a blurb. And some of the people, I'm actually going to see if one of them or 2 of them, whoever takes me up on it first, would write a foreword for the book. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So anyway, feeling good about this tonight. It's time for me to say goodnight, and so I'm going to. In fact, my name is DP Knudten, and I am all about nonfiction branding, the Nonfiction Brand podcast. A new episode came out yesterday featuring Mike Alton, a really cool guy. Check it out, episode 118. and you can pick up that podcast wherever you could find podcasts for free. Just search for Nonfiction Brand, and this image, the black and white photo of myself and the words Nonfiction Brand, that's the cover art or the album art for the podcast. And if you see that, you will have selected the correct podcast. I hope you'll give it a listen. And if you like it, give it a thumbs up. By all means, subscribe to it, because new episodes are coming out every Monday. Refer it to other people. But most of all, could you do me a favor and review it wherever you get your podcasts? Because that helps other people find the podcast. That's it for me tonight. I'll see you tomorrow. But until then, theme music, take us on out. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.